Late nights at Walmart had their own peculiar aura. The store's emptiness, the quiet hum of the cooling units, and the distant hum of the highway combined to create an unsettling atmosphere. But I needed the job, and my shift wasn't ending until I restocked the shelves and tidied up. As I took my 15-minute break, I stood outside getting some fresh air. There was a regular stray dog that would always be lingering around the area. I'd actually gotten into the habit of throwing him whatever scraps I could muster up from inside. I started to make my way in and I noticed a man in his 40s pacing near the entrance. His eyes darted around, as if searching for someone. As I passed by, he looked at me, his gaze unnerving. "Hey, could you help me?" he called out, his voice almost too friendly. I hesitated, my instincts urging caution. "Just need a hand loading a couple of things into my truck," he continued, motioning to the exit. Despite my unease, I agreed, thinking it was a straightforward favor. As we reached the entrance, I noticed that his truck was parked in the darkest corner of the parking lot. My heart pounded. This felt wrong, but it was company policy to help people carry things to their car. He gestured to a couple of boxes in the bed of the truck. "Could you just hand me those?" he asked. My fingers twitched with unease, my gut telling me something was off. But I tried to push the thoughts aside and focused on helping. Just as I reached out to grab a box, a shiver ran down my spine. I heard the faintest whisper behind me, the rustling of fabric. It was the sound of movement, of someone stepping out from the shadows. Panic surged through me, and I glanced back. And that's when I saw them, two more men, emerging from the darkness, their faces obscured by shadows. My heart raced, my body tensing, and I dropped the box instinctively. My mind screamed at me to run, to get back inside the store, to safety. I turned to bolt, but the man in front of me grabbed my arm, his grip like a vice. "Where do you think you're going?" he sneered, his friendly demeanor now replaced with a menacing grin. Adrenaline surged through me, and I fought to break free. The men were closing in, their intentions unmistakable. I struggled, my heart pounding in my chest, my thoughts a jumbled mess. And then, out of nowhere, a barrage of barks came from the bushes. It was the stray dog that I'd always see around the parking lot. It lunged at the man who had my arm and latched right onto him. I felt so relieved and shocked that I remember I actually let out a smile and a slight giggle. It's weird, but I vividly remember the massive emotional shift from sheer terror to absolute relief when that dog came running out. The grip on my arm loosened, and I wrenched myself free, stumbling back. I started sprinting back to the store, followed only by the sound of the growling, barking, and moans of pain from the man. At this point, my coworker came running out to check on me. I could see the men getting into the truck and driving towards us as I told him what happened. "Get lost," my coworker growled, his voice full of authority. The men hesitated for a moment longer before retreating, disappearing into the darkness. My coworker turned to me, clearly concerned for me. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, my heart still racing, my mind was still racing, and I was on an adrenaline high. That's when the dog ran over, peaceful as ever, wagging his tail and pushing himself into my legs. I gave him the biggest hug and told him how much of a good boy he was. My coworker and I watched as the men disappeared into the night. "We need to call the police," he said firmly, his eyes focused on where the men had vanished. We retreated back into the store and dialed 911. Within minutes, the police arrived, and I recounted the chilling encounter to them. They assured us they would patrol the area and keep an eye out for any suspicious activity. The dog stayed with me the whole time as the police took our statements. We had narrowly escaped a potentially dangerous situation, and it was a sobering reminder of the risks that came with late-night shifts. In the days that followed, news spread about a group of individuals attempting to lure unsuspecting victims into their trap. The police were investigating, and I felt a mix of relief and gratitude that my new best friend had come to my rescue. Late nights at Walmart would never be the same for me. The unsettling atmosphere was now a haunting reminder of the night I barely escaped danger. A few years back, while I was doing any work I could get, I took up this gig at the 24/7 Walmart. It was a bit more rundown than your typical Walmart. Dimly lit aisles, flickering fluorescent lights, and an eeriness that only an empty Walmart at 3 in the morning can provide. I'm stocking shelves in the cereal aisle, just trying to keep myself awake with the monotonous routine. And then, out of nowhere, this guy saunters in. He's tall. I mean basketball player tall, with long strides that make him seem like he's on some sort of mission. There's hardly anyone around, and this dude's pacing down the aisles like he owns the place. Kind of weird, but not out of the ordinary Walmart weird. Just a late night shopper with a peculiar vibe. I'm busy stacking cereal boxes when I catch sight of him again. He's standing at the end of the aisle staring at me with this grin that could send shivers down your spine. The lighting is wonky, casting these creepy shadows that don't help my nerves. Before I can even process what's happening, he's right there, right in front of me. Close enough that I can smell the alcohol on his breath. He shoots me this look like he's got the juiciest secret in the world, and then he says,
"I've done something very naughty."
I try to laugh it off, brush it away with a nervous chuckle. But he's not having it. He keeps staring, that grin still plastered on his face. It's late, it's quiet, and the place is kind of creepy already. But this guy, he's turned it up to 10. He starts following me. Aisle after aisle. Every time I turn around, there he is, watching with that stupid smile. It's like he's playing a twisted game of hide and seek, and I'm not even a player. More like the unwilling target. I try to get on with my work, but I can feel his eyes on me like they're drilling holes into my back. Then, out of nowhere, he starts humming this tune. It's faint, just under his breath, but it's off-putting as hell. I can't put my finger on where I've heard it before, but it's that famously creepy whistling song. I decide to take a breather and head to the break room. Maybe I can shake him off and catch a few moments of normalcy. My coworker's in there and we're making small talk about assignments and exams, trying to keep things light. But the whole time, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. And guess what? I was right. I spot him at the entrance to the break room, just standing there, staring right at me. I freeze and I swear the room got colder in that moment. I point him out to my coworker, and when he turns around, the guy's vanished. I glance at my coworker. I couldn't read his expression. I asked him, "Did you see that?" He looks at me. The confusion is obvious in his eyes. See what? Clearly, he saw nothing. I realized that he missed the entire encounter. It was only me who saw him. I run my fingers through my hair, feeling a mixture of paranoia and frustration. "Never mind," I mutter, dismissing the topic. Maybe I'm just letting my imagination get the best of me. It was late and I had not slept properly in days. My coworker's not as intrigued as I am. He's focused on the task at hand, more interested in getting his work done than delving into whatever nonsense I was talking about. We head back to our posts and I'm still rattled. I can't shake the image of that guy's grin. Hours pass and I try my best to concentrate on my tasks, but the unease is a constant presence in the back of my mind. I keep glancing around, half expecting him to reappear. That creepy grin plastered on his face. And then, out of nowhere, he's back. My heart skips a beat and my hands tremble. It's like a nightmare come true. He's standing there, that same grin on his face. My breath catches in my throat. Before I can even react, he's sprinting towards me, his steps quick and purposeful. Panic surges through me and I freeze. What does he want? My mind races, but my body is paralyzed. He grabs me and easily picks me up. He starts shaking me and shouting in my face. And then, as if from a distance, I hear a shout. My coworker's voice cuts through the fear. "Hey, get off her." He's running towards us, his footsteps echoing in the aisle. The guy releases his grip on me, his attention shifting to my coworker. And in that split second, I find my voice. I scream as loud as I can and start beating on him. My coworker arrives, his presence enough to make the guy hesitate. He turns and bolts, disappearing down the aisle. I'm left shaking, my heart pounding. My coworker rushes to my side. He looks seriously concerned. "Are you okay?" he asks me. I nod. I'm completely out of breath from the screaming. We're both shaken, both trying to make sense of the madness that just unfolded. We call the police, and as we wait for them to arrive, I can't help but replay the encounter in my mind. What was that guy's deal? Why would he attack me? The police arrive and we recount the bizarre events. They search the area, but the guy is long gone. I tell him what happened and try to describe just how creepy and weird he was, and I mention that he said he'd done something naughty that night. Suddenly there's like 4 more cop cars pulling up, and they're taking this real seriously. My manager sent me home for the night and told me I didn't have to come in tomorrow. I checked the news the next day and saw that there had been a hit and run nearby with a suspected drunk driver killing a family of 3. The description of the suspect was almost exactly the same as the guy who attacked me. What the hell was this guy's problem? As far as I know, they never found him. I check the news occasionally just to see if he comes up, but I've not seen anything since. A few years ago, when I was just a teenager, I had a rather peculiar and unsettling experience in a supermarket that still baffles me to this day. It was a typical Friday evening, and I found myself at our local grocery store, tasked with picking up some items for the weekend. At the time, I was around 16 years old. I was a typical cheeky teenager. The supermarket was a place I had visited countless times, but this visit would be unlike any other. As I strolled through the aisles, I noticed a child's voice coming from somewhere nearby. It sounded faint, as if it were coming from behind the shelves. This was nothing extraordinary for a grocery store, a kid amusing themselves or playing hide and seek. I used to do that myself. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to play along. With a grin on my face, I knelt down next to the cans and responded to the tiny voice. "Hey, what are you doing back there?" trying to sound playful. To my amazement, the voice responded, "I'm stuck. Please help me." At first, I found it amusing, thinking it was another shopper's child having a little fun. I chuckled and continued the conversation, exchanging lighthearted banter with the mysterious voice. It was almost like a game of pretend, and I played along, asking them how they got behind the shelves and what they were doing there. But then, the tone of the voice changed, growing more desperate. "I'm really stuck. It's so dark, and I can't breathe properly." My amusement began to fade as genuine concern started to take its place. I realized that this might not be a joke, and I needed to act quickly. I called over a store employee and explained the situation, telling them that there was a child trapped behind the canned goods. The employee rushed to get help, visibly concerned. I tried to reassure the child that help was on the way, but the response I received sent chills down my spine. "Hurry, please. It's getting harder to breathe." Panicking, I shout the employee over and I quickly move the cans aside, expecting to find a child in distress. But to my absolute bewilderment, there was nothing behind the shelves, no space, no child, just a solid wall. The employee caught up to me and we both exchanged uneasy glances. I was utterly dumbfounded, and the store employee seemed quite annoyed at the mess I'd made. I awkwardly tried searching around the shelves, but the whole thing was up against an obvious wall. To this day, I remain haunted by how real the whole thing felt, that child's voice, seemingly trapped behind a wall and slowly suffocating. It was a surreal and unsettling experience, the only time I've ever experienced something so convincingly real.